Welcome back to When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a podcast about censorship and the arts. My name is Todd Sullivan. Joining me, as always, is Peter Ramin.
Hello.
And today we are finally talking about George Orwell's 1984. Welcome back. We made it. We made it to 1984.
We did.
In 2025, we've made it to 1984.
And we're, kind of like society-wise, we seem to be heading in this
Wow.
How apropos.
There's some interesting overlaps between this. And it's been, I honestly can't remember if I've read this book before. I know I've owned it before. I know I bought a copy of it in 1984.
As one does.
There was like a new edition, a new cover, and it was in the Scholastic book catalog.
Oh, like at school kind of?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is an interesting thing to think about, because I'm sure this book has probably been banned from some schools since then. But yeah, at the time it was in the Scholastic book catalog. I must have been somewhat culturally aware of it, but only sort of as a science fiction story. And I think even if I did read the entire thing, I don't think I enjoyed it at 11.
No.
I don't. And I remember vaguely a little bit of the first chapter that I've read so far. And then everything after that is just like, no, not really. Not really.
Yeah. I mean, I read it a little bit later, probably in my teen years, but same thing. Like I didn't really remember, like I've got flashes of certain things that came back, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those books that I think you read at the time, especially if you're young and I think for me, this is one of my first forays into like the dystopian future type book. And, I think it kind of scares you. And then you kind of maybe repress some of that.
Sure.
No, that's not happening in our society. And then, you get old and jaded and you're like, that's definitely, I wish I could remember that book more.
Yeah.
So it's good.
And there are definitely are times in history where we are closer to 1984 than not.
Yeah.
And perhaps in 1984, we weren't as close as we are now.
I don't think so. No.
Granted, we had Ronald Reagan, or not we, but America had Ronald Reagan as a president.
When we talk about things in this book, like there's an aspect of technology in terms of like the telescreens and like the being able to kind of track you that in 1984, I don't think we really had as a society.
No.
Right.
And definitely not in like 1949 when it was published.
But now, if we look at smartphones and always listening and recording, and there's like advertising digital screens and cameras like all over the place, especially in the big cities, maybe less so in rural communities. But, if you're in a city, there's almost nowhere you can go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially big cities, traffic cameras, store cameras, convenience, ATM, like there's, you're monitored. Probably almost as good, if not better, than what we're seeing in the book. Partly though is we don't have the telescreen on the wall; we have it like in our hand in the smartphone. Right?
Yeah.
So we're like anywhere we go.
And it's funny you should say this, because I bought the copy that I'm reading right now off of Kindle, because 1984 is in the public domain in Canada, so like you can get a Kindle copy for super cheap. I got it for like $1. And I haven't used my Kindle in a while. And there's a new feature on the Kindle now because Amazon also owns Goodreads.
Okay.
And I have a Goodreads account. I don't use it so much anymore, but I used to like, going in and reviewing my books that I read and, leaving my, 4 stars, 3 stars, whatever. And when I opened up 1984, my Kindle was like, we can now automatically update your Goodreads with what you're reading. Would you like us to do that? And I was like, okay, big brother, let's just automate the ability for you to spy on me and then share that information with others, because that's not at all exactly like what we're about to start reading.
Wow.
So maybe it felt doubly appropriate.
Yeah.
Double plus appropriate.
Double plus.
Because of what we were reading.
Wow. Well, I think it's also fitting. I know I was just kind of reading a little bit in the foreword in my copy that we've been delayed in terms of getting to this episode.
Yeah.
And And the original title of the book was actually supposed to be 1980,
Uh-huh.
but because of Orwell was kind of battling with an illness while he was writing it, and so it kept kind of getting delayed in terms of when he wanted to publish it, and he kept changing the year
Yeah.
of the book. So it went from 1980, went through a few iterations, and by the time he was ready, I think to kind of publish it, became 1984.
Right.
So this iconic number could have been something.
Could have been very different, but it was
different.
delayed, just like we were delayed in getting to the podcast about
Right.
it, which also seems, wonderfully appropriate.
Yeah, lots of things are aligning here.
Lots of things are aligning. And it was his final book.
Yeah.
I think did he not die not long after? Or,
yeah, I mean, he was ill, I think,
when he was writing it?
through the writing of it.
I can't imagine dwelling in the world of this book would have improved any sort of illness he had.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's turn to Wikipedia, as always, to get some descriptions of the book we're talking about today. 1984 is a dystopian novel and cautionary tale by George Orwell. It was published on 8th June 1949 by Secker and Warburg. Warburg is Orwell's ninth and final completed book. Thematically, it centers on the consequences of totalitarianism, mass surveillance, and the repressive regimentation of people and behaviors within society. Orwell, a democratic socialist and an anti-Stalinist, modeled Britain under authoritarian socialism in the novel on the Soviet Union in the era of Stalinism and the practices of censorship and propaganda in Nazi Germany. More broadly, the book examines the role of truth and facts within societies and the way in which they can be manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout its publication history, 1984 has been either banned or legally challenged as subversive or ideologically corrupting, like the dystopian novels We by Yevgeny Zamyatin, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, Darkness at Noon by Arthur Koestler, Callacane by Karen Boy, and Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury.
And definitely, I see some similarities in terms of kind of like the Brave New World type of world, but
I often see
differences as well.
Yeah, I've seen it put, and this was before I had read Brave New World, that basically the way that they treat sort of like dulling people, I guess, is kind of polar opposites between those two books. Like in 1984, it's about sort of like repressing entertainment and pleasurable things and that sort of thing. Whereas in Brave New World, it's the opposite. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, let's fill these guys with so much drugs and sex and everything else that they don't even care anymore about.
Yeah, I mean, I know which one I would pick if I was forced to live in a dystopian.
And I think too, one of them is going to be more effective than the other. Yeah. I think it's easy to keep people under the thumb of oppression when they're having a good time.
Yeah.
As sad as that is to say. And maybe that's something that the U.S. president could learn from. Because I think he's working more from the 1984 playbook.
That's right. Yeah.
According to Czesław Miłosz, a defector from Stalinist Poland, the book also made an impression behind the Iron Curtain. Writing in The Captive Mind, he stated, "A few have become acquainted with Orwell's 1984 because it is both difficult to obtain and dangerous to possess. It is known only to certain members of the inner party. Orwell fascinates them through his insight into details they know well. Even those who know Orwell only by hearsay are amazed that a writer who never lived in Russia should have so keen a perception into its life."
Yeah.
The writer Christopher Hitchens has called this one of the greatest compliments that one writer has ever bestowed upon another, only 1 or 2 years after Orwell's death. In other words, his book about a secret book, circulated only within the inner party, was itself a secret book, circulated only within the inner party.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's neat.
It is.
And also, in a way, kind of sad.
That he was so accurate.
Yeah, like that he was so accurate and that they were fascinated by it and potentially like used some of these or tweaked their own ideas.
Yeah.
Just like, it was like a playbook for socialism under the Russian.
Sure. Well, I think Orwell was a journalist.
Yeah.
And so I imagine he had some amount, and I haven't done a lot of research on his history and his work as a journalist, but I imagine he must have had some degree of, involvement in writing about those sort of regimes and the things going on. Because, Animal Farm is also very much about, the Russian Revolution and the rise of that kind of socialism in the Soviet Union. So it's clearly something that was on his mind and something that he was drawn to multiple times in fiction.
Yeah.
I will say too that so far, this is probably immediately jumped into, as far as the quality of the writing, one of my top 5 books that I've covered on this podcast. I think it's exceptionally well written.
Yeah, it's sharp.
It is sharp, and I found it to be incredibly engaging and a mega page turner, despite the fact that so far very little has happened.
Yeah. I mean, we've read all of part 1.
Yeah.
And it has been really just world building.
Lots of world building, but by world building, by dropping us kind of into the mundanity of his day-to-day life.
Yeah.
It is a lot of showing rather than telling.
Yeah. And the inciting incident is treated in such a way that you almost don't even realize that it's happened, right? Like this whole, he's decided to write a diary kind of piece, and like that is a major thing, but you don't
you don't know necessarily why,
how important and impactful that decision is until you learn more about the world that he's operating in. So it's an interesting, you just kind of see this world, and you're thrown into it in just following this guy around, and slowly that world expands and expands till you really see like how kind of terrible this future state is, right?
Yeah.
So really, really interesting how that slowly builds and evolves. And I mean, some of the interactions are pretty neat, and some are comical, and some are, a little. Yeah,
some of the interactions I think are funnier than I was expecting them to be, like not comically funny, not like,
I don't know. I kind of laughed out loud in the scene in the pub with the old man.
That's true. But they're very darkly humorous.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not Adam Sandler funny. It's not,
Sure.
Yuck.
I would imagine though, for the time, right? In the 40s,
I don't know,
into
maybe
the 50s, it would be from a dark humor perspective.
Yeah. I think even then it would have been pretty dark humor.
Yeah.
This is from bookanalysis.com. 1984, which is known for its depiction of Big Brother and allusions to dictatorships, has repetitively been banned for 2 major reasons: obscenity and supposedly pro-communist passages. For anyone who knows anything about the author or has even read the novel, these 2 reasons should be striking and absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Orwell was a self-proclaimed democratic socialist. He spoke out articulately in his novels, nonfiction books, and essays about the failings of Soviet communism. It is only due to the fact that some segments of the public have been in the past unable to separate communism from socialism that the book has, in some instances, been banned. One of the best-known challenges to the book was in 1981 in Jackson County, Florida, where it was banned for this exact reason.
There you go, Florida
again,
keeping us in business.
In addition to the supposed pro-communist attitudes in 1984, there are the sex scenes, which are far from explicit, between the characters Winston Smith and Julia. There was mention of them going to bed together and passages that declare sex a revolutionary act against the party. Which
we just haven't quite
gotten there yet, but there has been implications about how the party has tried to take the pleasure out of sex, right? And turn it into just
a transaction.
Just a transaction.
Breeding.
Exactly. And then now we have from Book Summary Review. The banning of 1984 can be traced back to its immediate publication. Notably, the Soviet Union banned the book as soon as it was released due to Orwell's critique of authoritarianism and totalitarianism. The Soviet government found the novel's portrayal of a surveillance state and the suppression of independent thought to be highly objectionable. However, the banning did little to stifle interest in the novel. Orwell's powerful message resonated with readers, and numerous clandestine copies circulated in the Soviet Union. The banned book became a symbol of resistance against repressive regimes.
Oh, there you go. Pen is mightier than the sword.
Yeah. So we have, I was banned in China from 1984 to 2017 due to its criticism of totalitarianism and the Communist Party.
So it's no longer banned in China?
Apparently not.
Wow.
It is.
But if you buy a copy, then your social credit score is
probably.
So, yeah. Yeah.
It is apparently ongoing banned in Iran. Where it is considered a threat to the Islamic Republic and has barred its distribution. It's apparently ongoing banned in North Korea. The North Korean government prohibits the possession and distribution of 1984 due to its potential influence on dissent and rebellion.
I think that's pretty telling, a lot of the places where this book is,
Right?
and where you go, well, is this country really like doing things or trying to enslave their population or manipulate
How
the
can we
masses?
tell?
How could we possibly tell if this country is doing things the wrong way? Oh, they've banned this novel that
That
speaks
warns
out
of certain
against
behavior? Interesting. It was banned in 1972 in the United Arab Emirates for its themes of rebellion and its portrayal of a dystopian society. And it was banned in Cuba in the late 1960s due to concerns about its anti-communist message.
I mean, that's just a list of like, yeah, that's where you thought it
Yeah,
would be.
that's probably, that's legit.
Wow.
So yeah, that's what we've got as far as bannings.
Well, not surprising, I guess. Florida, right up there with
Florida,
Russia, North Korea, China,
Cuba,
like Iran,
as it should be.
Yeah, come on, Florida.
So let's get into the book itself, eh?
Yeah.
Chapter 1, once again, very little happens. Chapter 1, I think, to me, my primary notes for chapter 1 is like a list of sort of all of the immediate world building references we get, these things that are not familiar to us. And it starts with the first sentence with the reference to the clock striking 13.
Yeah.
The sense that this world is not ours. My assumption is that it's running on a 24-hour military clock. Mm-hmm. But who knows? Because that's never clarified. Yeah. I think the latest hour I've seen so far is like 23:30.
Yeah.
As a reference to when I think people had to be in bed by.
Yeah.
But maybe...
Well, the other thing too is that time could potentially change, right?
As far as like what an hour is, and exactly.
What time it is or what time it was, like.
Oh, that's a good point, because that's something that happens a lot in this book, is this idea of rewriting history.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, the clocks could just change whenever.
They could change whenever.
Just have to accept it.
That's a really interesting perspective that I'd not considered. But what another sort of, because all time seems to be controlled by the party in this book. Like everyone's references as far as when they need to wake up, when they need to go to work, when they need to, go to lunch, when they need to come back from lunch, is all delivered to them through the telescreens by the party. Yeah. And so it's entirely possible that, the party is changing, all of a sudden you're
making your lunch hour shorter.
Your lunch hour is shorter, but you don't know that because you're still being told it's
this time.
It's this time. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So telescreen obviously is one of the other big pieces that we see right away, which is the Big Brother is watching you device, right?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit earlier about the technology that, in 1949, we might not have had to do this. This was, essentially a giant smartphone on the wall that could see you,
hear you. Yeah.
Although pick up on things that you're doing and potentially change the programming.
Yeah.
Feed messages and propaganda from the party.
It's not known by Winston. Winston Smith is the main character and and our narrator. Mm-hmm. And it's not known by Winston whether or not people are always watching you through your telescreen.
Yeah, I think he suspects that if you do something, it may draw attention.
Well, I think the thing is that, like, his assumption, right or wrong, is that the telescreens need to be observed by somebody at the other end of them. Mm-hmm. And because you could never know when you were being observed or not, it was safer to just not always do anything. But within that first chapter, he does talk about having this little alcove that he can sort of sit in and sort of get away from being in front of the screen. We also get references to thought police.
Yeah.
We get references to thought crime, which is, I imagine, what the thought police investigate.
Yeah. Pretty challenging cases sometimes, I would imagine.
Yep. We get references to these 4 major ministries. Ministry of Truth is basically the Ministry of Propaganda.
Yeah.
Ministry of Peace is the Ministry of War. The Ministry of Love it enforces loyalty to Big Brother. And then the Ministry of Plenty is all about the economy. Mm-hmm. Overseas rationing of food, supplies, and goods.
Yeah.
We do, like you said, find out about Big Brother, and we never get a name.
No, he's just this character.
Yeah.
So the leader of the party.
But there's a picture of him too. So I think like it's intended to be a person. But I think there's the benefit of it being propaganda that it can be like this person can be replaced.
Yeah.
I imagine you probably never actually see him.
Not a real version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's this kind of, and it's less so now because the concept of Big Brother has kind of bled out of this novel and become a cultural thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's an intent of friendliness behind the name.
Yeah.
He's your big brother. He's family. He's looking out for you.
Yeah, certainly presented that way. And then the telescreens will show speeches and, communications coming from Big Brother.
Yeah.
Like speaking to whoever is watching the telescreen, which in my mind, I was like, this is potentially like kind of a deep fake technology, right? It might be a real person. Big Brother might have died years ago. Like this is sheer like technology employed by the upper party members to kind of present this figurehead that maybe at one point was a real person who helped kind of with the revolution against, the dark days of capitalism. But yeah, there's really no way of telling. Is this a real person? Are these deep fake type videos? Is like, how is this Big Brother actually running the party anymore?
And then you also have Emmanuel Goldstein.
Yes.
Who
the villain,
but who once was a member of the party and who helped overthrow capitalism.
Well, you can't have a villain without kind of that fall from grace.
I guess that's true. Even Darth Vader was a Padawan once. But he gets a name, of course. First. He gets a name. I don't know.
And there's Goldsteinism.
Right,
which is like his followers.
And I don't know whether it's intentional that it's a Jewish name.
Possibly.
But yeah. And then, of course, we have the famous propaganda message of war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength.
Yeah.
And
just the classic values that
really bring a
society together.
But it's funny because I remember sort of reading that when I was younger and going, that doesn't make sense. That's contradictory.
Yeah.
And it is if you look at it in a very black and white way.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, in the kind of post-Trump era where we have things like alternative facts, I can make a compelling, I think, argument for how these are all true.
Yeah.
Right? Like the only way to ensure peace is to fight against the people who would fight against us.
Yeah. No, I
you know what I mean?
Like there's a case to be made. Freedom is slavery is maybe the tougher one, but in this supposed society, right? They're all enslaved to the party.
Yeah.
Big Brother's watching you, but now life is better.
Exactly.
Before. So, you have this freedom to live this life by being a slave to this system. I mean, it's tenuous, but
I do agree that freedom is slavery is the tricky one.
Yeah.
Ignorance is strength. I can see that being definitely argued by the Trump administration. Like,
just ask any drummer.
So yeah, we meet Winston as he is starting a diary.
Yes.
In this little notebook that he's purchased.
And I think, it is described that it's dangerous.
Yes.
Right. That if he's caught, like this is bad.
I got the sense that even the act of writing something down is dangerous.
Yeah.
Like having a record of anything, because we will eventually learn that like any sort of written record is susceptible to revision.
That's right.
Right. But yeah, at this moment, we don't really understand why it's dangerous.
Yeah.
We just get that sense. Then we have sort of like as he's writing, I can't remember if he actually writes this down, but we get a little flashback of him at work earlier. And we're introduced to his coworkers, a man named O'Brien.
Yes.
There's I
think this is just a remembrance as he's trying to figure out what to write.
It probably is, yeah. There's a dark-haired woman with a scarlet sash around her waist that I think is a symbol of being part of the anti-sex league.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because he points out that all the sash really does is accentuate her hips.
Right, yeah.
And then there's a sandy-haired woman nearby as well. And these...
Older lady.
I think so. And the three of them are all about to sort of sit down for the 2 minutes of hate.
Yeah.
Which is another.
It's like an intense propaganda piece that really focuses on.
Yeah. It's Fox News, basically.
Well, it's like the current enemy, though, because I think it's either this chapter or the next chapter where he talks about like that he can remember when the enemy they were fighting was actually a different enemy.
Yes.
Who's now their ally.
Exactly.
And this kind of switches, at whatever point, and everyone is always told, oh, we've always been fighting this enemy.
Exactly.
So this 2 minutes of hate is this intense period where the telescreens all light up with this propaganda machine, and it really gets people, riled up, and they're jeering and swearing and cursing the enemy and just like frothing at the mouth, essentially, after 2 minutes, almost whether you want to or not, to kind of bring everyone together, right? And focus all that hate and potential emotion that could potentially be directed towards the party. That's all outlet and directed toward
Goldstein primarily,
or whoever it is.
He finds himself also directing it towards the dark-haired woman.
Yeah.
And as he sort of comes out of this memory, he finds that he is written down with Big Brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a knock. There's a knock at his door.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little bit. He gets up to answer the door, and just before he does, he looks back at his notebook, and he hasn't closed it. Mm-hmm. And he notices like he thinks about how sort of dangerous this is, because this is quite a revolutionary kind of.
Well, it's directly
against the party. But he also makes reference to the fact that there's a part of him that thinks he didn't do that because he was afraid of smudging the writing. Mm-hmm. And it struck me as really interesting in that I think it really emphasizes how important this act is to him, that he is taking this step, he is doing this thing, and he doesn't want it marred. He doesn't want it.
Yeah, he wants this record preserved.
Yeah.
Right? Like he while he struggles to figure out what to write down, the fact that he's decided to do this at all, I think he recognizes that this is important. And whatever he does kind of chronicle here in this diary could very well be quite important to whatever movement comes in the future. We only get a sense of that, I think, but it is there that, there's a revolutionary kind of aspect to this. And that if his words are found by, other people, that he wants that record to persist. And,
Yeah.
But then he thinks he might be dead here.
He does. But he answers the door, and it's just, is it Mrs. Parsons?
Yeah. Like his neighbor.
His neighbor. I think we learn that Mr. Parsons works with him at
the Ministry of Truth.
Yeah. And basically her sink is clogged.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, help me."
Yeah. Come fix it.
But she does.
Yeah. But she's got a couple of kids.
It does have a couple of kids that are a little rowdy.
Yeah.
They're a little disappointed that they didn't get brought to the hanging.
Well, it seems like we kind of learned that kids are like the main kind of tool of the thought police to kind of infiltrate.
Yeah, well,
like they're literally called the Little Spies. Like there's a whole league, right, of, I think it's called the Little Spies.
I have a section here I've quoted. Nearly all children nowadays were horrible. What was worst of all was that by means of such organizations as the Spies, they were systematically turned into ungovernable little savages, and yet this produced in them no tendency whatever to rebel against the discipline of the party. On the contrary, they adored the party and everything connected with it. The songs, the processions, the banners, the hiking, the drilling with dummy rifles, the yelling of slogans, the worship of Big Brother. It was all a sort of glorious game to them. All their ferocity was turned outwards against the enemies of the state, against foreigners, traitors, saboteurs, thought criminals. It was almost normal for people over 30 to be frightened of their own children.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just like today, but...
Well, and it struck me very much as like reminiscent of Hitler Youth.
Yeah.
But also to an extent of like the red pill of today's youth.
Yeah.
These dissatisfied men who have been sort of roped into the far right propaganda machine of like, you deserve more and you deserve better just because you exist, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But it turns out that it's just cabbage in her sink.
Yeah. But I mean, the kids do give him a hard time.
They do.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get to the cabbage.
Yeah.
That's important. Cabbage is everywhere. There's the smell of cabbage constantly.
Yeah.
He had to
I mean, this is the food of the
sift this wet cabbage out of the sink, and then
food of the future.
As he's trying to leave, he's accosted by these kids who are like, playing, cops and robbers, but it's like spies and traitors.
But with, serious potential consequences.
Yeah, because they can
accuse adults and like they will disappear.
And yeah, there's a scene later where Winston sits down with Mr. Parsons at work.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe at lunchtime. And Parsons is sort of like, you'll never believe what my daughter did the other day. Yeah. She broke off from her group and followed this stranger for blocks and then eventually turned him in. It was amazing. It's like, good Lord.
Yeah.
And then to chapter 3, we have Winston dreaming of his mother.
Yeah.
In the dream, she is sort of like drowning in the water, sort of like deep beneath him. And then he wakes up as the telescreen blasts his sort of morning alarm.
Yeah. And then there's like a physical exercise regimen that's called the physical jerks.
Yep.
It's like a Peloton kind of style, guy yelling at him to.
That's right.
Touch his
physical
toes.
Jerk sounds like a good name for like an improv comedy troupe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a lot of like the one thing that, sort of like jumping jacks and touching your toes. He gets called out at one point for not doing a good enough
as
job.
We talked before about like, are the screens able to watch you and do like, so yes, this particular instructor has some kind of direct line of like, oh, I can see Winston, you're not doing this, and calls him right out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we certainly kind of see the ability of these telescreens to like observe everything that you're doing and, try and correct your behavior or speak directly to you.
And to the credit of the person at the other end of the telescreen who motivated him to touch his toes, he does point out that he touched his toes without bending his knees for the first time in a very long time. So,
in
years. So maybe we need to rethink all of this. Maybe this is a good thing.
Physically fit here.
Exactly.
So yeah, now he goes to work.
Yeah.
To the Ministry of Truth.
Before that, though, because I have this note from chapter 3, which it's pertaining to what we're going to end up getting into in chapter 4 about sort of like the mutability of the past and how it can change. But it's the quote, "Who controls the past," ran the party slogan, "controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past."
Mm-hmm.
And essentially what that means is that the ones who are in charge of the present are able to modify the past.
Yeah.
And in fact, that is his job.
Yeah.
Is when he's in work, he gets these little messages through pneumatic tubes, which still one of my favorite pieces of technology of all time. Those little pneumatic tubes. I love those things so much. They pop in and they're basically,
like little work orders of like change this.
Editorial notes. Yeah. About going back into past magazine articles, newspaper articles, and modifying them so that what is happening now or tomorrow is not contradicted.
That's right. It'd be a speech from Big Brother, like a newspaper or a magazine, even books as well. We also find out here about unpersons.
Yes.
So if someone no longer exists, they become an unperson, where they're basically deleted from history. Yeah. Completely removed.
He also refers to that as being vaporized. Yes.
By the party.
Yeah. I have another quote here, again, about this sort of adjustment of the past. "Day by day and almost minute by minute, the past was brought up to date," which I think is an absolutely brilliant and chilling sentence.
Yeah.
Because it does absolutely feel like stuff that we see happening in the US, again, under Trump, this idea of, we can. So, for example, some of the things that, he has said in the past about the war between Russia and Ukraine and this sort of.
Then it just changes based on the
the direction of the wind, and how easy it is for his followers, for his supporters, to hear something that he said
and just
is not mesh with reality, but just ride along with it.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing here that is maybe a bright spot when we look at the world today is that this machine, the Ministry of Truth, whichever ministry in terms of the party here, Big Brother, the whole thing, it's a very complex and well-oiled and well-run machine, right? They've got huge amounts of workers that are trained to do this work, I'll use the word competently, quickly, right? To change history, to collect books, to collect magazines, to update these articles, to, there's this very competent, well-oiled machine that is controlling, what's happened in the past, what's happened in the public record. The bright spot is that when you look at like the Trump administration, competence is not really anywhere on like the list of adjectives that you would use to describe.
Yeah.
So, if there's one bright spot, even if they're playing at all from this playbook,
they're not as good at it.
They're not going to really ever get good.
Yeah, I
and
guess.
Certainly this second term, competence, is even further down the list of adjectives to describe this administration.
I do have one last quote from the end of this chapter where I think Winston has been he's created, I can't remember the edits he has to make to this story, but he has created a fictional person to blame for something, or who has sacrificed himself for something.
So instead of like the original thing was attacking somebody, like Big Brother was attacking something or said something about, I can't remember what it was, but so he invents this war hero to kind of celebrate
Comrade Ogilvy.
But because he's dead, right, there's nobody's going to check up
exactly
on this, right?
Exactly.
So he just creates this little war hero story.
And this line struck me as amusing as well. Winston debated with himself whether to award Comrade Ogilvy the Order of Conspicuous Merit. In the end, he decided against it because of the unnecessary cross-referencing that it would entail.
Yeah.
So he's
to go write a bunch of other articles.
Right. He's thinking about should I add this extra layer to the lie to make it more interesting? But no, that's just going to create a bunch of unnecessary additional work to do.
So, I mean, we do get the sense that Winston is good at his job in terms of doing this, but also through his narration, we understand that he knows what he is doing.
Yes.
And that it is, manipulation and changing the past, and, that this isn't necessarily right.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some of his coworkers, right, when we meet them, seem to maybe not understand what's going on, right?
So, and I think this also is where we begin to see that he has bigger questions about the past, about these, because his own memory is not great.
Mm-hmm.
He's been living in this sort of world for so long that, and
though he can vaguely remember the world before the revolution, but he's not
sure that, because we hear all these things, or he hears all these things about how the world is better now, and he's not sure he believes that.
Because he feels it in his bones. You can feel that, the slop they have to eat, and the coveralls, and the lack of razor blades and boots, and things are not actually great.
It is, I think, maybe a natural result of these moments of, there's an example where he had to, they had heard that the rations for chocolate were going from 30 grams to 20 grams. Then he has to edit it to say that it's always been 20 grams and how great that is. And so as you do those little adjustments, you are going to start to think have they been doing this the whole time? Mm-hmm. And is that how this picture of how the world is better now? Is that where that comes from?
Well, the other thing, and it's not in this chapter, but, as we get a little bit later in this world building, we get the story of the capitalists, this society that prompted the revolution.
Or supposedly did,
right? These evil capitalists.
With their top hats.
Yeah.
In chapter 5, we join Winston on his lunch break at the canteen, where he meets a guy named Siney, who works, basically he's creating the new 11th edition of the dictionary.
Yeah, but it's like the Newspeak.
It's Newspeak.
Dictionary, so it doesn't have kind of regular.
No, and I think he remarks at one point that it's the only dictionary in history that each edition has fewer words in it.
That's right, yeah.
And he's quite proud of that. That's the goal of it, is to, and this is where we sort of, we've had hints at this concept of Newspeak, sort of how the modern words, but this is sort of the first time that we get a really good example of how it works, and how the idea is to sort of whittle down the words that people have access to in order to express themselves.
Yeah, I mean, he lays out the game plan of Newspeak, right? To essentially reduce the language to so few words that there is no ability to have complex thought.
Exactly.
Right. And just by the lack of the ability to express yourself in the language, you are essentially a sheep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which is a chilling concept.
Yeah. I talk about like, suppression 101, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll cut down the language so you can't even express yourself or think in terms that might violate what the party wants.
But it's interesting too, because like I said, I think before we started recording, there's a part of me that appreciates the efficiency of that too. And, it's one of those things where I think you could make an argument for the positive elements of it in order to slide through the negative ramifications.
Yes. There's a certain kind of simplicity to it, like a mathematical kind of black and white certainty to the meaning.
Yeah.
So if I'm communicating with someone using that, we're going to be on exactly the same page because the language is so black and white. There's no nuance. Really nuance or ambiguity, right? So I see that. But, ultimately, right, what that is doing.
But reality exists in the nuance and the ambiguity.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the big examples that comes up in the chapter, for example, is they talk about good and why do you have another word for bad when you can just say it's ungood?
Yeah.
And then why have a word for great when it can be double plus good or plus good?
Plus good, yeah.
And then exceptional would be double plus good.
Yeah.
And really bad is like double plus ungood.
Yeah.
And it becomes like this sort of mathematical process of like adding
one word, and that is the key to expressing.
Yeah. And you just add suffixes and prefixes to it until you get to the meaning you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then Mr. Parsons joins them.
Yeah. So Mr. Parsons, who wasn't around when Winston had to go kind of check on the plumbing, but we find that he is kind of like the perfect party member, I guess.
Kind of, yeah.
He's kind of like this guy who is pretty like low intelligence and just dialed into like the party propaganda, right? I mean, everything he says, and this is where we get into the story of his daughter following.
Yes, exactly.
A foreigner, right? So he's just, and he sees that as like, and he's always like, hey, old boy, like very British. But we get the sense that he is the ideal. And I think Winston even says like, this is a man who will never be vaporized.
Exactly. Right? Like, he's like, I'm going to be vaporized. Siney is going to be vaporized.
Siney's too smart. He's too into the doctrine. And Winston is obviously questioning the doctrine, but
Parsons is pretty
Parsons is pretty like...
He's found his sweet spot within the party. Yeah.
He's got that right level of blind faith and ignorance that the party really wants from its members.
And as they're sort of sitting and chatting, he notices that the dark-haired woman is once again nearby and at one point is looking directly at him.
For what he thinks maybe have been an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of wandered off in his thoughts.
Yeah.
A little bit, thinking about who would be vaporized.
Exactly.
Not vaporized. And then he kind of was like...
He looks over at her, and as soon as they meet eyes, she looks away. But it's now got him wondering, is she following him?
Yeah. So what we've seen so far of the world, right, of the little spies and the people turning on each other for anything that is not within, what the party wants from you. His first suspicion is that she is spying on him or following him for some nefarious reason to turn him in.
Probably for a thought crime of some kind.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, so he started this diary. So he does have something to do.
He does. Exactly.
Right. So there's kind of all of this happening where he, it could have been totally innocent, whatever, but because he has this kind of guilty secret right now, he's putting a lot of weight on the suspicions here that he has.
And I think it's true that like when you have a guilty secret, it does make you more paranoid.
Yeah.
It does make you, a little bit more jumpy. I remember the first time, probably when I was in my early 20s, the first time I pirated a video game over a dial-up modem. So it's taking like an hour or whatever to download or more. And then a police car drove by my house and I was like, how did they find out so quickly?
So are they watching me?
Wasn't for me. Chapter 6, Winston is now back at his home writing in his diary.
And now I guess we start to get a little bit, but this is such a tame recounting of this.
The prostitute?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sort of coming out of him in sort of like fits and bursts. Like he writes a couple of sentences, then stops, writes a couple more sentences and stops. But it's about this memory of this time that he sort of went out of his way to the parole section of the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time that we really get a sense of just how different the proles or these lower class of people are from the party.
Which I had to Google to figure out what
the proletariat.
The proletariat, yeah. But yeah, and this chapter's a lot about sort of like the way sex and relationships and marriage exists in this world too.
Yeah, because I think is it into the next chapter where he's talking a little bit about his wife?
He does talk about his wife in this chapter, yeah.
Yeah.
And how like he's almost forgotten that he's even still married, which he's not even sure he is, but he thinks so.
He doesn't even know if his wife is alive.
Is alive, yeah. His wife, Catherine. Apparently, so the way it's painted in the world is that you're encouraged to get married and have children, but sex is kind of like you're not supposed to have a good time.
Yeah, and so the way the party matches people up is they don't want people marrying that are actually attracted to each other.
Yeah, so basically they frown upon it if you're attracted to each other. Yeah. So yeah.
Kind of makes for a challenge, I would say.
Yeah.
Where sex has no pleasurable aspect to it. You're not attracted, like, I don't know how kids are being born really in this environment.
Well, and so he talks about how, like, whenever he would embrace his wife, it felt like every muscle in her body was pushing him away, but she wanted to have kids because it was her duty to the party.
Yeah.
And he loathed the process because he just didn't want to have sex with somebody who very clearly didn't want to have sex with him.
Where it was just transactional.
Exactly.
And I think the fanaticism of his wife bothered him a little bit.
Probably.
Like the party fanaticism.
Probably.
Where she really wanted to do this, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
I think that also bothered him, which on top of just like the not being attracted to each other and like the repulsion or opposition, right? Like it was maybe just a whole other layer of being like, oh man, how are you going to get through this?
And at the same time, he's reflecting on this experience he had with a prostitute in sort of the prole area of the city one night. Peter.
And also we hear a little bit about the danger of where like, because sex is looked down upon by the party, that it is dangerous to get caught.
He does point out that it's not like you're not going to get vaporized. It's a lower
ranking sin.
Yeah, something about 5 years in a work colony or something like that. Yeah. Which easy. I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty hefty.
Well, versus death.
Death, I guess, but like for sex, I mean, I guess they probably don't get a lot of lube in there. Lube or lotion in there. He's working on 6 weeks with the same razor blade.
Yeah.
If not more. So yes.
Plus the telescreen's always watching.
Always watching. And maybe some people get off on like being watched through the telescreen, but they'll probably get,
maybe.
I don't know. Is masturbation okay in 1984? Probably. No.
We haven't heard.
Really. We haven't heard. But I'm going to guess not.
Yeah, I think the whole anti-sex league and like the no pleasure in sex.
Exactly.
Might point us in the right
You're wasting your seed without making, children for the party to corrupt. Chapter 7 is a big chapter about the proles.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is where, what does he say? Like the powers with the proles?
Yeah, the proles are basically the only group that could potentially overthrow the party if they wanted to. And I think it's strength in numbers.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of them, but they don't have the drive. They don't have, there's no one really pushing them to do it.
They've got the lottery.
They've got their beer.
They're essentially, like the brainwashed masses, that are distracted by whatever the party is kind of pushing at them. Yeah. But they're enjoying life. They get to have sex. They, even though they're not supposed to have the god awful gin that is reserved for party members, they seem to get that as well.
And even if they don't, there's some mucky beer.
But they seem to be living a relatively good life comparatively to what we see. To an extent,
I guess you could argue that there's a little bit more freedom. To the proles, which in turn makes them slaves, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Slavery. I mean, that's
exactly
equivocal.
And he has a memory here, thinking back about, again, revisions to the past, where this memory of the supposed traitors to the party from early on in the revolution when they rose up against the capitalists, and these three people who had confessed to these crimes. And then at some point in his day-to-day work came across this newspaper photo
of all three
of them that confirmed they could not have been where they confessed to being. And this is another moment in Winston's past where I think the seeds of, can we trust what we've been told?
And he really focuses on that he physically held this proof in his hand.
Yes.
And ultimately he destroyed it.
He destroyed it, yeah.
But the fact that he held it in his hand is something that I think gives importance to him and really has stuck it in his memory as like this kind of incontrovertible proof of what the party is doing.
Yeah.
Right. Even though, I mean, that's his job is to correct all this stuff. But
I think there's a difference between, minor corrections versus, because at this point, this would make you question the validity of Goldstein as the enemy, right? Like if these three people who confessed to their crimes didn't actually commit those crimes, maybe Goldstein didn't do anything wrong either. And that is certainly going down a dangerous path, I would think.
Right, yeah.
And then he references seeing them later at a cafe.
Yeah.
And that, I'm not sure if the implication there is that they shouldn't have been free, like they should have been
vaporized.
They should have been vaporized. Right. So, and I think they disappeared and were vaporized later.
Yes.
Although maybe that was just a matter of Big Brother dialing up the cleanup, like how far he's willing to go to clean up these lies.
I don't know, because he does kind of narrate that it seems like the party may have a use. So you disappear, but you may still be alive for some time.
Right. Right.
You, or maybe have a use to reintroduce you to society or something like that. Right. So, which I think is almost more nefarious than just like people are wiped out. The fact that they're maybe taken away and then used as a tool, further manipulation.
Yeah. Before they're wiped
out, right? So this is kind of like we're getting more into the inner workings of how the party, uses people, whether they're as the enemy or then they recant or they confess later to different crimes, or there's this ongoing resource of the bad guy or these people where they don't just eliminate them together.
They keep them around to allow the history to remain flexible.
Exactly.
Yeah, good point.
So kind of also very frightening.
Yes. Chapter 8, we get
one of the funniest chapters.
One of the funnier chapters, yeah. Winston heads into the Pearl neighborhood. And at first it's not clear why. There's some...
Well, so the kind of kickoff here is that it's a nice day outside.
Right.
So he doesn't want to go to like the community center where they're supposed to go after
work,
exactly. Because you're never really supposed to be alone. But it's a very nice day. And like he just wants to enjoy the day and be on his own, right? Which is very much like not a thing.
It's not a thing you're supposed to do, because who knows what you're getting up to.
Exactly. And if you're alone, like if you're outside of this propaganda machine of everyone being together and being observed by Big Brother, who knows what you'll do. So he goes for a walk by himself, kind of just is wandering a little bit, gets, into the Pearl district. And, we kind of get a sense of that.
Narrowly avoids a nearby bomb blast.
Yeah, there's a rocket bomb.
Yeah.
Kind of like blows up a house, and everyone just kind of like, I guess there's a few people that respond and try and drag people out, but like the next block over, they're just like, well, whatever, and living their life.
Exactly.
But then he does find himself
in a pub.
Well, he makes the conscious decision to go in.
He does, yes.
Because he's thinking during this walk, he's thinking a little bit about history and the change of history and this story that they've been told that life was more terrible prior to the revolution because of the capitalists, because they controlled everything, and they could have sex with your wife if you wanted to at the drop of a hat, or
and you always had to tip your hat to them and call them sir when you passed them on the street,
bow them and whatever. So he has this idea that, hey, look at that old guy that just went into the pit. I bet he's old enough
to remember.
To have been there and remembered all of this stuff. So I'm going to go in and ask him about it.
So he does. He goes in and, offers to buy him a beer. Meanwhile, the guy is arguing about why he can't get a pint.
Yeah.
Only a half liter or a liter.
That's right.
And he's like, no, the pint is the perfect amount because a half liter isn't enough and a liter makes me pee.
Yeah, exactly.
But Winston, buys him a beer and starts asking some questions about the past, which the guy
doesn't go super well. I mean, the guy, I guess, technically answers, but it turns into this rambling, kind of set of very like personal, like micro level detail kind of remembrances that have nothing to do with the broad generalizations of society at the time that Winston's looking for. So he's kind of like, this guy is not going to tell me anything. All he's focused in is on these specific things that he can remember about his own life. But it's a hilarious conversation, a little dark, but very, very humorous in terms of this back and forth.
Yeah.
And he's feeding him more beer. And then he does have to go.
He does get up to go pee. Yeah. And at that point, Winston's like, well, I guess I got everything I'm going to get out of him, and gets up to leave. At which point, when he leaves the pub, he realizes that he's kind of accidentally wandered into the neighborhood with the antique store.
Yeah, where he
bought the journal.
Yeah.
So he decides to pop in there as well.
Yeah.
He has himself a little look around.
And there's not much. So we get a sense that there's stuff on the shelves.
There's lots of
much of
stuff,
any
but
value
nothing of
whatsoever.
value. Yeah. But he does find and purchase a glass paperweight.
Yeah, it's kind of like
that's got like a coral inside. Yeah. Not sure why. I don't remember what he said about.
Part of it was that it was
the beauty of the coral,
right? Which is obviously not something the party would allow.
Yeah.
So that is in itself like this little act of rebellion.
Right.
There's some weight and heft to it, right? Yeah. And the fact that it's old. It's from this previous period.
Yes. And then the shop owner's like, there's more stuff upstairs if you'd like to see. So they go upstairs, and it's kind of like a furnished apartment almost. And Winston starts to think like, what it would be like to rent a place like that.
And just get away. And there's no telescreen.
There's no telescreen. This idea of there's a fireplace, this idea of putting your feet up, having the fire on, and there's nothing to interrupt you except the sound of the kettle going off as you're making tea. And he wonders whether or not he might even be able to sort of convince the shopkeeper to rent it to him for $4 a month. I don't remember what he calculated, but it does make me wonder whether or not this place is going to come up later.
I feel like this is going to be significant because so he doesn't haggle with the shop owner when he tells him the price of.
Yes, and the shopkeeper sees it was $4.
Yeah,
and the shopkeeper was very eager to get the $4, and he realizes he probably could have gotten it for $3 or $2.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the shopkeeper, was going, hey, this could be
lucrative,
a little bit of a lucrative potential arrangement. So, in theory, I think we've got now, the resource that Winston might need.
Yeah.
Or whatever he may do in the future, like a room or a private space.
Yeah.
Is a bit of a key kind of thing that, especially when he's talking about his diary or, to get that out of his house or, so this is where book one ends, basically. So I'm kind of contemplating about, what he could potentially do with this room and how life could be different.
Yeah. When he does finally leave the shop, he finds himself thinking that, first of all, he thought,
oh, right. Yeah.
He was a bit shocked to find himself back in the neighborhood because initially he had not intended to go anywhere near it because
he wanted to keep away from it.
He didn't want to get that connection between him and the journal. But now that he's been back and been through it again and come out with this paperweight, he's now thinking he may come back again, maybe in a month's time to explore it some more.
Yeah, the one kind of final incident.
And then as he's heading home, he crosses paths with the dark-haired woman again.
Why would she
be here?
Area?
This is where you shouldn't be going.
And he during his walkabout, he is worried that he could potentially run into the thought police.
Absolutely.
Right? Because there are spies in proletariat areas that are there to report on party members.
And as much as it's not illegal to be there,
Well, nothing's illegal.
Nothing's illegal, but there are lots of things you shouldn't do.
Exactly.
So yeah, now we've just, elevated this fear even further that she's following him. He walks past her and then briefly considers trying to
go kill her.
Yeah, he thinks about bashing her head in with the paperweight, but I think part of it he doesn't really want to damage the paperweight is I think part of what.
Well, and also he didn't think about it quick enough, and he's like, "There's no way I'm running after her."
Yeah, right. Because
even though we know he's getting better with his
varicose ulcer in his leg, he probably can't go that fast.
Yeah, so he's like, "Damn it! There's no way I'll catch up to her now, too."
Yeah.
So, whether he would have ever done anything or not, though. Yeah.
That pretty much brings us to the end of part 1.
Yeah. So a lot of tension.
A lot of world building.
We get, we really do get to see a bit of the Proles world at the end in the last few chapters of this section. And we have built up a lot of tension with this dark-haired woman. Right? We've had a few different incidents now where, something is going on. It's a little more than just coincidence at this point, certainly with the last little piece there of her being the proletariat area and just
although
him or maybe being there on her own.
Exactly. It's entirely possible that she's there on her own and is having the same thought about him. Why is he following?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that's why she was staring at him in the canteen, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Maybe he was unconsciously staring at her while he was lost in thought.
Maybe he was, yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, so we've got a very, I think, not complete necessarily, but we've got a pretty broad view of kind of where the world is at. The party is at war with Eurasia. They're essentially in London, but I think the town that the party is in is called Airstrip 2.
Okay.
And London is kind of like the proletariat area. And so always at war. Party life is not that great, right?
Yeah.
There's no boots, there's no razor blades. Chocolate, went down, even though they're saying that it went up, and right, this constant reworking of history and trying to limit language so we can limit thought. And, we've got a real, clear picture of where this regime is at.
Yeah. And Winston's desire to break free of it, even if only as much as in creating a diary, writing down thoughts that he shouldn't have.
Exactly. And this is why they have the thought police.
Yeah.
Right. Is to catch this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So he's taking a huge chance here, but he's conflicted enough internally about the state of life and it not being a good life versus the stories and the propaganda that have been fed to him by the party that he needs to explore this and do something about it. Yeah.
So I'm having a tremendous time with it so far. I think it's compelling. It's very page turny, like I said.
It's too apropos a little bit.
It is.
In terms of some things that are going on in our world right now, which is very frightening in a sense. But
Orwell is a stunningly good writer.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah. Excellent so far. Curious to see kind of what happens because I think ultimately he's going to clash with the party.
Yeah.
Right. This is where we're headed. It's almost on the
I do have vague memories of how this book ends.
Yeah. Okay.
I remember the beginning and I vaguely remember the end. Nothing in between those two things.
I think I have snippets of memories, but ultimately, regardless of what I think I can remember, we've got this clear collision course.
Yes, clearly.
Clearly. Into the party somehow. Is he going to find allies? Who knows? Is he going to be left to his own devices? And what's going to happen with the dark-haired woman?
Yeah, and with the diary.
Yeah.
And with that
is
upstairs
that
apartment.
Right? So, yeah.
Are there any dystopian novels that have happy endings? I feel like that's anti-dystopia to have a happy ending.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a few out there where, people break free, but
the movie Brazil is a dystopian movie that kind of has a happy ending in that the happy ending is just the main character going completely insane.
Okay.
And living in a fantasy
the
world.
movie Equilibrium.
I haven't seen that.
He kind of, he kills the main guy and resets things, I think. But I think it's pretty rare. And the happy ending is almost always people escaping.
Yeah.
And
overthrowing.
Causing a revolution or overthrowing things, right? So, yeah. I mean, these machines are set up to keep people down.
They certainly are.
If it was easy to overthrow a totalitarian regime,
there would be fewer of them. Yeah. I guess that's the takeaway from this, right?
Yeah. If I learned one thing.
If I learned one thing. So that'll do it for this episode.
Yeah.
As always, you can find all of the important links to all of our important things at blahblahblahmedia.com, BLAH media. We have a Patreon. We have a merch store. We have social media. You can find us on Facebook. You can email us at badthingshappen@gmail.com. Am I forgetting anything?
I think that's the buy us a coffee.
Buy us a coffee. It's all at blahblahblahmedia.com.
But we'd love to hear from you.
We would love to hear from you. Share your thoughts on 1984. Share your thoughts on your own favorite band book. Share your thoughts on past episodes. Share your thoughts on the Turner Diaries, which continues to be our most downloaded episodes.
Yeah.
Even if you want to call us spurgy little fags, which I think was what I got on a comment once about
some of the regular terms.
Turner Diaries. Yeah, the regular terms. Yeah, I think that's...
Yeah. We'll be back with the next episode.
Part 2.
We get into book 2.
Part 2 of 1984 next time.
We find out what actually happens.
And whether or not Winston gets any further in his diary.
Yeah.
Or finds out what is up with that dark-haired lady.
Yeah. I feel like he's going to have to figure
to figure it out.
His curiosity has been, or maybe not curiosity, but
our curiosity has certainly been piqued.
Yeah, he's got enough, I think, stress about it that he wants to figure it out.
He needs to figure it out. Yeah.
Right on.
All right. I've been Todd Sullivan.
And Peter Evans.
And until next time.
Go read a fucking